Hey, welcome. This morning I'm just going to chat a little bit about if you're a yoga teacher and you want to transition to more embodied language and how one of the key kind of language tools and tips, one of 5 key language tools and tips that you can use to do that. The first question is why would you want to change to embodied language? And one of the things that kind of I think of in terms of why this is such an important thing is, do you know at the start of every class you say to your students, just do what's good, what feels good in your body. Really respect your body, and you're offering them, inviting them to take poses or not take poses at a level that suits them. In reality, how often do your students actually follow that invitation? So you make the invitation with genuinely inviting them to do it, and yet somehow they find themselves, or you notice that they push themselves into poses too far, or that they're in poses for too long, or that they're striving in a way that isn't useful for their body. So here's a kind of for me, a really important tip as to how to change that dynamic in the class. Clearly, invitation at the start of the class is critical, but it's not enough. It's not enough to support students to make those decisions for themselves. So the language cue is better, worse, or the same. Is it better, worse, or the same? So how do we use this? It's a fantastic tool. Better, worse, or the same. The way we use it is that you notice whatever it is you notice about the student. So maybe they're in warrior and their knee is externally rotated. That turned out that's not safe. Or maybe their foot, they haven't got support of their back foot. Whatever the adjustment that you want to invite them to make, you've become aware of it and you're about to language what the thing is. The first step is to take a pause. Take a pause with that student and see, can they sense what's going on? So ask them to notice, say, the power through their back leg. Then offer them their adjustment. See what would it be like. Play with the foot position, for example, and slightly moving the foot in whatever way it is, so that they become more stable from our eyes. And then inviting them to check in. This is where the learning is for the student, so that the student can find this position for themselves in the future, because you don't want them to be dependent on you all of the time. You don't want your students to always need you to be their eyes. You want to train them to feel from the inside what is the difference, and you know why you're asking them to make this adjustment. So now support them to notice that in their body. So in their body, see, can they feel and sense, is it better, worse, or the same? Better, worse, or the same. So they may not have the language to understand what is going on. You can cue, does it feel stronger? But the question is for them, and then they make the decision. So this is kind of really fundamental. They make the decision. Do they leave their foot, in this example, in the new position, or do they return back to the other position? So is it better, worse, the same? And they choose. If they say it's worse or the same, then you have, depending on the time of your class, you have the opportunity to offer an additional suggestion. See, play with it a little bit more until they find that Goldilocks place. It's really important for me to sort of language it. I use the language of Goldilocks. So are they, if Goldilocks had taken the first bed or the first chair that she'd sat on, she'd have never found her true comfort. It would have always been a little bit hard. And even if she'd taken the second chair, it would have been a bit too soft. But once she made that third adjustment, then she found the perfect chair or the perfect bed. So encouraging your students to give themselves the time to take that 1, 2, or potentially even 3 versions until they find in their body what is better, worse, or the same. And so then they can choose the better one. What you're doing by doing this is a number of things. The first thing is you're empowering your students to be agents of their own body and for them to decide what feels good in their body. The second thing is you're starting to train this somatic awareness in their body, because we have lost connection. You know yourself, you're teaching yoga. You ask people to move their body and they don't even know where their body is. And if you invert them or you twist them, and then they can't figure out even where their hand is. So we as a society typically have lost connection with our body, with that sensation in our body. So inviting them to notice, is it better, worse, or the same? Straight away starts to train that for them and to reprogram that somatic awareness in their body. And then the third thing is this whole power dynamic, that you become an expert in yoga, but not in their body. Because you don't know when they walk in, what situation were they in yesterday or 3 months ago. They could be off on their balance today, and you may make an assumption that that means that they're aging and they're losing their balance. On the other hand, maybe they're just recovering from an operation, and this is massively better than it was a year ago, that they've been working on their balance for a year. So we get to see a student in one moment in time, and we get to support them, but we don't know the big picture of their body. And therefore, again, we're saying, look, we have the tools. We know about the tools, and we have trained our eye, and we can support you, but you know about your body. So again, we're important supporting and empowering them. Better, worse, or the same. It takes a little bit of time, like a tiny second more time, rather than just say, turn your foot this way. Check in, how does that feel? Try, invite them to change the position, and then ask them, better, worse, or the same. It's really, really powerful, and it's really, really simple. I do, just before I go, need to give you one little thing, is that sometimes the student will pick the one that you don't want them to pick. Now, most of the time not, but sometimes they will pick the choice that you don't want. And in that situation, as long as it's safe, you need to live with it, because otherwise you're just undermining yourself. So if they choose the one that to your eye doesn't look the best, then invite them to inquire, and if they're still solid and they're safe, leave them be. And so now for you in your teaching of the next class, you're thinking, maybe I'll play with pathways of weight, maybe I'll play with sensation, maybe I'll play with balance to support our students as a whole to develop more somatic awareness. And maybe just you were wrong. Maybe it is better for them in whatever natural position that they had. So it could be it could be habits that are really embedded in their body so that they feel comfortable in those habits, or it could be that you require more information. It's really, really fun, and it's a really, really nice way to play with this is better, worse, or the same. Invitation to make an adjustment. Is it better, worse, or the same? So you're supporting your students all the time, that they become the experts in how they sense and feel. Have some fun with it. Let me know if there's other tips that you would like me to talk about, and I will see you next week.